Hey friends, before we dive into this week's episode, just a heads up. Our podcast talks about suicide, sexual abuse, and other trauma, and some of what you hear may be triggering, so please listen with care. This is The Survivors, real stories, raw conversations, and the truth about what it means to keep going after the hardest things. We're so glad you're here. Let's keep surviving together. So you and I have wanted to talk about this for a little while. And we have talked about it a lot offline, but today we're bringing it online. And today's the day. You have survived a lot in your life. That's a massive understatement. An awful lot. You've survived the suicides of 5 of your brothers, 3 of your own attempts, sexual abuse, cult life, domestic abuse. Like you've survived it all. And we've talked a lot about all of those things and all those traumas over the last 2 seasons or season and a half. But what we've never actually talked about is something else that you survived, which is you survived obesity. I mean, there's only one way to say it. That's pretty fair to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you've
Absolutely.
lost over 100 pounds, which is such an unbelievable accomplishment. So today, I hope you're smiling. You better smile because it's amazing. It makes me smile. So today's a conversation about transformation and a different kind of survival, but something that so many people struggle with in so many different ways. It's not just the people who are struggling to lose 100 pounds. It could be 50 or 20 or 10. But we're talking about it in terms of surviving that kind of trauma. Like, would you consider it to have been traumatic for you, to have been whatever the size was that you were when you started losing weight?
So the highest I ever got was about 320, and I stopped weighing after that. I know I got heavier, but I don't know how heavy I got. I would imagine somewhere in the 340 range.
Yeah.
And yes, it was because people treated me differently. And many people that have lost weight talk about how they get treated differently after they lose weight. And yes, it was. It was hard. Absolutely. Just the overall carrying that much weight is exhausting. Emotionally, physically. Looking in the mirror is hard. And then you start to beat yourself up, and just like the self-image is really awful in that situation. And I've looked back for like before and after photos. There are not many. I did not take very many pictures of my full body when I was that heavy because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to be reminded of it.
Yeah. And I can imagine that that's a pretty consistent practice from anybody who doesn't feel good in their own skin, whether it be someone who's overweight or someone who has some other kind of challenge that's physical. I imagine that's a pretty normal way to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say I've always been what's considered quote unquote bigger boned. But I would say that I just over the course of it was, I had mentioned previously in an episode that I had developed a thyroid disorder at 14, 15 when I started having the flashbacks about being sexually abused by my older brother. And it seemed about that time, not too long after that, I did get my thyroid under control. But it seemed like after that, it was just a slow, steady weight gain that happened over the course of a decade or more. And I just didn't, people are like, how did you not know? And when it's slow.
Well, you knew.
Right, I did. But people are like, how could you let that happen? Just various things like that. I know my mom was not very kind about it. And it happens so slowly that you're just, one day you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my Lord, or you see a picture of yourself and, oh my God, do I really look like that? I had that happen a lot where I'd look at pictures of myself and because it was weird. It was a little bit of body dysmorphia where when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that. But when I would look at a picture, I was like, that is what I look like. But I don't see that in the mirror. It's very strange to me. Same thing happens now, 100-pound weight loss. I still have trouble shopping for clothes because I still think I'm that bigger human and I keep buying clothes that are too big. Come home, try them on, and I'm like, I have to go down a size.
Well,
It
that's a
is,
good problem to have,
it is
right?
very, very strange, and I looked into it a lot about, why did I struggle with my weight? And I have some stats here that I want to share with you about childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, according to a study, people that have experienced adverse childhood trauma are 2 to 3 times more likely to experience obesity in their lifetime
Mm-hmm.
than the average human.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Not at
2 to 3 times more likely. And then with each additional trauma, that adds an additional 20 to 30%.
Well, I rattled off all of your previous trauma, and I'm not making light of it. I'm not laughing,
Right,
even though we're
right.
both
I
kind of
know.
smiling because you know where I'm going with this. Like,
Yes.
you should literally weigh 10,000 pounds. I
I
mean,
know.
really.
Absolutely. I when I started looking up the stats, I was like, okay, this is making some sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's as each trauma happens, your risk goes higher and higher and higher. And it makes perfect sense, absolute perfect sense as to why I got to be, and then COVID happened and I
Uh-huh.
got on an antidepressant that just literally turned off my full button. And everybody was going through a really hard time, obviously, during 2020. And so I got on a stronger antidepressant to deal with all of that. And I just ate and ate and ate and ate.
Uh-huh.
And I had zero energy. I became an absolute zombie. If I managed to get a load of laundry done in a day, I was happy about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is, most of the time, what's happening on the outside is just a reflection of what we're trying to survive on the inside. And you're trying
Hmm.
at that time in your life to survive all of these incredible losses, your dad, your brothers, your own attempts, your, trying to navigate COVID at home with kids and a family and all those moving parts. And that's a lot. And that's enough to throw anybody into a tailspin. I'm sure if you looked at what the alcoholism or drug abuse statistics during that finite period of time were, I'm sure those all skyrocketed. I know
Hmm.
that suicide attempts and mental illness skyrocketed. So, it all goes hand in hand.
Yep, absolutely. And I know that people that have like a binge eating disorder, the stats on that is 50 to 70% of individuals with childhood trauma will have a binge eating disorder. I don't think
Mhm.
I actually like binge eat, but I would just, I don't know. But I overate for sure. I
Yeah.
do know that. I didn't ever feel like I was binge eating or anything.
Well, it's a coping mechanism, and that's
Hmm.
the thing about eating unhealthy. When we're eating unhealthy, all the sugar, all the salt, all the carbs, all the unhealthy things that we're eating are tricking our brain into wanting just more and more and more and more of those things, but they deplete our energy and our resources and our muscle capacity, and they change our physiology. I mean, 500 calories is 500 calories of fruit is not at all something you can compare to 500 calories of snack food and crap.
Hmm.
It's not. The calorie
Yeah.
count may be the same, but what you're talking about in terms of what those calories are made up of and what they do for your body, they react totally differently in our
Yeah.
body. So it's no wonder that you didn't feel full because you were eating all the stuff that's designed to keep you wanting more of the same stuff.
Yeah. And I was on a number of different medications, one of which I was taking Ambien to help me sleep. And one of the side effects of Ambien is I would get what's called nighttime munchies.
I have a story for you. Boy, do I have a tangent for you. Go ahead. I'll tell you after.
And I would wake up in the morning and I would see bags of empty chips or snacks on the side of my bed and have absolutely no recollection of eating that
I feel
before.
so close to you right now. You have no idea. Like, I want to hug you so badly right now. When Dave listens to this episode, he is going to die because I was on Ambien for 10 years for
So
sleep.
was I.
10 years for sleep. It was the most absolutely miserable experience of my life. So there were a few things that I dealt with relating to Ambien, and what you're talking about with food is only one part of it. For me, it created some kind of a crazy chain reaction in my body that whenever I would sweat, I know this is going to be way too much information for anybody to need to listen to right now, but I'm going to say it anyway because we talk about everything on this podcast. I was a big runner at the time and was, constantly at the gym, constantly running. So I'm constantly sweating all the time. It was like I became allergic to my own sweat. So I would have, no joke, I swear to God, I'm going to have to show you pictures of what this looked like, because there were times when I had to actually photograph these episodes to show to a doctor. I would, around my waistband, around where your sports bra fits you, I would have the most uncontrollable, savage heat, like it filled with heat and prickly, itchy rash on any part of my body that was coming in contact with my own sweat. And that lasted for 10 years. I could be out in the garden gardening and I would break out. I could be out for a run, out for a walk. I could be sitting at someone's wedding and it's the air conditioning's not too strong. And all of a sudden I've got this massive rash. The other part of it was I would always have like a little, like a bowl of fruit at night in bed, or, we'd have maybe some popcorn. I would get up in the morning and I would have a bowl of something and have zero memory of going and getting it or of eating it. And this happened all the time. Hey, it's Lisa Sugarman, co-host of The Survivors and founder of the HelpHUB. If you're listening right now and you're not okay, if you're feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying more than you can handle, please know you don't have to go through it alone. You can call or text 988 or chat online at 988lifeline.org to connect with trained counselors like me who are there to listen and support you in the moment. Reaching out is a brave first step, and you owe it to yourself. Because your life matters, your story matters, and help is always just 3 numbers away.
And there's another thing that is not talked about either, is intimate time with your spouse, and then you're like,
no thanks.
No, like, I didn't remember.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
No, for real. I'd wake up, the next morning, be having my coffee or whatever, and I'd get a little flash, and I was like, so it's a kind of a joke with George and I now. And I walk up, I'm like, did we laugh? And he's like, yeah.
Well, go George. I didn't know that was a side effect. I thought you were going to say sleep shopping. Which is what a ton of people who used Ambien. There were all these chat groups. I found out all this crazy information when I started looking it all up. But we're getting completely off topic. But I think that this was a really funny tangent because it's so. I mean, it's so true, and it relates to what you're saying because it's all about about eating and consumption. But all right, so let's go back a second. Let's go back before your weight loss. Can we do that for a second? Mm-hmm. What was life feeling like for you? Around, like, emotionally, mentally, like in the time before you really started to gain weight? Like, do you remember when things kind of started to shift? Was there an event?
But when I got really heavy?
When you really started to gain weight and noticed that you gained weight?
It was over the course of a few years. Mm-hmm. And I would see, again, pictures, but we spent a lot of time at the beach. And, there were pictures and stuff like that. And I was just in denial. And kept having to buy bigger and bigger clothes. And, and then it was just a matter of survival where I was just like, I got to the point where I just didn't care.
Yeah. What were you going through, like, emotionally at that time that may have triggered it? Like, would you think that there was a trigger?
No. It was just a slow, steady. Okay. I got on Lexapro when Dominic was a baby because I had some postpartum depression. I was on that for a number of years. And then again, with COVID, got on Paxil, and that one just pushed me up over 300 pounds rapidly within 9 months or so. And that's when I was like, I can't do this. I saw a picture of me in 2021. For my birthday, and I just was like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. And so I chose to wean off of the Paxil, which was one of the, me personally, one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've later found out I probably should have gone to a clinic where they get you off, kind of like a
detox.
Drug rehab. Yeah, detox.
Yeah. Actually, speaking about Ambien, I just went cold turkey, complete cold turkey.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed to do that. But what I will say is that it was unbelievable. Almost immediately, I would say within a week, I did not have a single issue having a rash. It changed my life. I mean, those were so debilitating. That was the worst part of it for me. And it was all gone immediately.
Did you get on Ambien after you found out about your dad's suicide? Is that why you started taking
No,
it?
I didn't. I have just always been a historically terrible sleeper, and it's not for lack of trying. I just have that extra chromosome in my body that just can function fairly well on 2-3 hours of sleep. So it doesn't matter what time I go to bed. It doesn't matter what I take. It doesn't matter, like if I take a gummy, which I actually am taking one now that is improving things a little bit for me. I've tried gummies. I've tried, over-the-counter sleep aids. I've tried, you name it, done all the no screen time, going to bed earlier. No matter what time my body goes to bed, it sleeps like a very specific amount of time. It's 2 or 3 hours, and then that's it. And so I think it was just honestly a conversation with my GP who said, "Have you ever thought about, going on something to try and help?" And at that time, Ambien was just emerging. This was like 20 years ago. I've been off Ambien for a long time. It was a fairly new drug at the time. And the doctor just said, "Are you willing to try this?" And I think at the time it maybe helped me get an extra hour or so. So I was like, okay, I'll stay on it, because it was helping at least a little bit. It was helping the thing I was trying to fix.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was why. It had nothing to do with my
Okay.
dad whatsoever.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. No, valid question, but no, it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it. Do you feel like your relationship with food or with your body was helping you cope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that statement that so people ask me all the time, a lot of my siblings, a number of them are alcoholics or they use marijuana to cope, and I don't do any of those. And I was in denial for, kind of was like, well, I don't have any of those kind of but then I realized mine was food.
Yeah.
And I do remember there were times where I was embarrassed or ashamed of it and would hide, what I was eating from George, or if he came in and saw me eating something, but he never, ever said anything. He loved me where I was at and never made me feel bad. It was more just me choosing that I could no longer live this way. So in 2021, I decided, okay, I'm getting off of this Paxil. And that was a horrific experience. Like, just look up, the side effects of getting off of Paxil.
What did you experience?
They're called brain zaps, where your brain is literally, it feels like you're being electrocuted from within inside your head. And I would
that
be
sounds awful.
mid-conversation and have to stop because I was felt like being electrocuted from the inside.
I see.
Yeah, like I didn't even know about the side effects. I would just start experiencing these weird things and emotionals, I was all over the place, just crying all the time. And so I decided to look up, side effects and I was like, oh, it's not in my head. So much of the time, I always think that I'm making stuff up in my head, probably because I was gaslit the majority of my childhood. And so I don't look things up for a while and then, find out, the stats and read up on studies. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is actually true. And the brain zaps is heavily documented. And it took about 2-3 months to get off of it. I weaned off of it very, very slowly, but I'm very grateful that I did. And just naturally getting off of that, I was nauseous. So I didn't eat a lot. And it was very weird to feel that full button. I mean, talk about, I would serve myself a meal and it was maybe half a cup of food, if that. And George was like, is that really all you're eating? Like, and then I would eat half of that. So a quarter cup of food. I'm like, I'm full.
Yeah.
And so it was like my body had to learn all over again what it was like to get full. And so naturally, I just getting off of that medicine, and we were going through an incredibly stressful time. That's a whole other story, moving 4 times in 18 months. And I got really, really low. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, all 4 of us, while we were waiting for our house to be built.
When you say low, you mean emotionally?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I told George it was around Christmas time of 2021. And I told him we were living in a 500 square foot, 1 bedroom apartment, all four of us, while we were waiting for a house to be built. And the stress of all of that, George working from home, the kids being homeschooled in such a tiny space in a small little town in central Virginia. And I told him, I said, you need to hide the guns. If they are in this apartment, I need you to not have them here. And he said, okay. And so he got him out of the apartment, and I worked really, really hard. I thought I was going insane, and I ended up having...
What was the thing that really made you feel that way?
Just, I don't know. I was so erratic in my mind.
But this is after you went off the medication.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I didn't think I had any reason to be feeling the way that I did. And so, again, I was probably gaslighting myself or convincing myself that it wasn't really that bad. And having, suicidal thoughts. I didn't want to be here. And I just couldn't stop. And at this time also, I then decided to wean off of Ambien, because then I started doing the research on being on Ambien long term. So I weaned off of that as well. So I think it was probably just a culmination of getting off of 2 medications that are not good for you mentally. They are not good for your brain health. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Dr. Daniel Amen. He is a world-renowned brain doctor. He's like the world's leading doctor on brain health. He has some clinics. I actually went and did his study, and they scanned my brain before at a normal active state, went back 24 hours later in a resting state, and they scanned it again. And what they revealed was like extreme childhood trauma. Like what was going on in my brain was... It was kind of like a revelation for me to realize that what I was experiencing and what I had experienced in my life was nothing that I had made up in my head. There was actual physical changes within my brain that had occurred that I had no control over.
Yeah.
And so it kind of it gave me a little bit of... I was kinder to myself.
Well, I think a lot of any journey begins with that piece.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be kinder to yourself, especially when you're in the thick of it. You're sitting there realizing when you look at a picture of yourself for your birthday that you don't look the way that you want to look. And, oh my God, how did I get to be that size? And you have 2 choices. You either can be kind to yourself in that moment and say, okay, well, I am here now. And this is the reality of where I'm at. And where do I want to go? What do I want to do with this understanding now, this knowing about my situation? And I mean, thankfully, you chose to be gentle with yourself and to give yourself that kind of grace to be able to do what you needed to do. What did surviving that part look like to you? Like, were there moments that once you kind of locked in and decided, like, okay, I this is not sustainable for me. It's not healthy for me. It's not where I want to be in my life. And you locked in. After that, were there moments where you kind of wavered or wanted to quit? Or did it just kind of...
Well, I just started losing weight naturally. Again, the stress of being in such a small, confined space with our children for much longer than we had thought. We were only supposed to be living in that little apartment for 6 to 12 weeks. It ended up being 8.5 months.
That's a long
time. Yeah, it's a really long time. And just this of being in limbo of not knowing when our house was going to be ready. And it got to the point where my body started to reject food. Again, that's why I thought I was going crazy. I was no longer able to eat anything but bone broth. I was sleeping 1 hour a night. And so in that process, I started to lose weight I lost 50 pounds in 2 months.
Oh gosh, that's a lot of weight.
I lost some weight, a little bit of weight when I got off of the Paxil months earlier, and then I dropped 50 pounds super, super fast. I ended up going and seeing a naturopathic doctor, and she diagnosed me with I had a buildup of yeast in my digestive system, in my intestinal tract. And that was why my body was rejecting food. This stress is the number one thing that will have a negative impact on you. Like, people do not realize what stress will do. Trauma is stress on your body, raising cortisol levels, doing all the things. That is stress. And, it increases, childhood trauma, stress. It increases abdominal fat. I still, to this day, have carry weight in my belly. And that's okay. It's just what my body has done all these years to protect me from all the things.
Well, it's what everybody's body. I mean, you
Mhm.
look at anybody who has a high cortisol level. If you have a high cortisol level, your body is going to be burning muscle and not fat. It's holding on to that. It's that instinct to survive and not get rid of those stores of fat. And it throws your system completely out of whack. If you're at a constantly high level of stress, then your body can't process everything that it's taking in properly. So it hangs on to everything. And for most people, especially women, they hang on to it right in the middle, just like you did. Looking for mental health resources that actually fit who you are and where you come from? Then you need to check out the HelpHUB. It's not another generic wellness site. It's a free, inclusive online platform built for real people living real lives. People managing stress, anxiety, depression, trauma and abuse, grief or suicide loss. At the HelpHUB, you'll find the resources, tools, treatment options, and trauma-informed content you need in the moment without having to dig through endless tabs or start from scratch. It's your place to land, to take a breath, and to find exactly what you need when you need it most. Visit thehelphub.co, where the help you need is just a click away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we got into the house. I had so many tests done trying to figure out what was going on with me, why I was losing weight so quickly. And then, just with the help of one of Dr. Amon's doctors, one of his staff members that I was assigned with my case, we figured it out together that one of my stress hormones was extremely elevated. And so we worked together over the course of a few months. And so doing that, I got down and, lost about 50 pounds with all that happened. Getting off of medicines and stress and all that, I lost 50 pounds, hell, without even trying. And then, we ended up moving back to Utah and settling in. And then I wasn't on any antidepressant, but I just started watching my weight go back up again. I didn't feel like I was in a stressful time. And then that's when all the deaths started happening. And there goes the stress again.
Yeah.
Slowly started gaining weight. And so I had heard about GLP-1 and, there's a lot of stigma around it. There's a lot of negative, there's a lot of chatter about it. I listened to the chatter for about a year and I just decided I can't do this anymore. I cannot live in this body and approach 300 pounds again. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take a shot in the dark. I'm going to try this medicine and see what it does for me. And so it's been about 2 years now that I've been on it. And I lost about 65 pounds very, very slowly. A lot of people lose weight really, really fast on it. I lost my weight 65 pounds over the course of like 9 months. And
well, that's still a lot of weight in a fairly short time.
Is it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That much weight in only 9 months' time is a pretty significant loss. Yeah.
It was pretty transformative for me, though. I feel like it was relatively slow, and according to what I had read, if losing weight slower in whatever method that you choose, losing 1 to 3 pounds a week is more sustainable and it's easier for your body doesn't go into shock necessarily.
Right, most definitely. That's a healthy way to approach it. People are constantly trying to do these, military diets and quick fixes and fasting and keto. And I mean, it's so overwhelming just to even know where to start because everything is so subjective, and what works for one is never going to work the same way for someone else. So it's hard. It's really, I give you a lot of credit for researching it and looking into it and trying to understand it the best you could before you got involved with it. And, and for you, it worked. For you, it worked. And it all too, I think a lot of it has to do with, how safely you try and navigate the process. There are people out there who are just like, I want this weight off me. I mean, I know people who are like, I can't live this way anymore. I want it as fast as humanly possible. And that's not healthy, and it's also not sustainable. And those are also the people who put on twice as much weight on the other end. They may lose it for a period of time, and then they're putting it right back on, and then some.
That's right. That's right. And I do know that, people that have had severe childhood trauma, they're also at higher risk for type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic inflammation. In fact, before I started taking GLP-1, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic. So had I continued on that path, I would have ended up diabetic. I had fatty liver disease, and then I had inflammation all over in my body. And I just started taking this medicine, and within, 6 months, fatty liver disease gone, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes gone, inflammation way, way, way down. And so I was like, why would I not continue to take this medicine? Now, I will say it's been, I've literally reached just this month my two-year anniversary, and I'm definitely not where I want to be. I still seem to be fluctuating in this 10-pound weight between 230 and 240. And I got really frustrated with myself because I referred a dear, dear friend to, I told her about it, and she lost a lot of weight really quickly. And I mean, she looks fantastic. She's where she wants to be goal-wise, and she's actually working on weaning off of it. And I got really angry at myself because I was like, why can't I have that same success? And I had seen plenty of people out on social media. They lost all the weight they wanted to and more. But why am I still holding on to this extra 20, 30, 40 pounds? And then I had to remind myself, most people have not experienced the level of trauma that I have.
There it is. You don't need me to tell you. You know exactly what it is. But you forget, and you get impatient, and you want what somebody else has, which is absolutely human nature. We are all guilty of that. I don't care who you are. I don't believe you if you say, I don't care about what other people are doing. We all do to some degree. So it's no wonder, you see how something's working with someone else, and we just naturally assume that it will do the same for us. And when it doesn't, there's a disappointment there. There's a little bit of anxiety and grief and probably anger and disappointment that it doesn't. So do you feel, so then you lost about 100 pounds, which is a massive accomplishment, and you deserve so much credit for that. Do you feel like the biggest change for you was physical or internal?
It was, honestly, it's physical to be, just to look at myself because I've, again, not very many pictures to compare to, but when I finally did like a side by side after about 9 months and I saw the weight, like I've shown people that didn't know me prior to now, like people that I've just met within the last 6-12 months. And they're like, I don't even recognize that person that's over 300 pounds. You do not even look like the same person. So for me, it's the ability to look at myself in the mirror, look at my face, and recognize this person right here and say, that's me. Because at 300 plus pounds, that person that was in the mirror or in the pictures, that was not representative of me. And so I know that for me, it has had a positive impact on loving myself and accepting myself as me, the reflection of me. So I'm sure there's been some emotional and the psychological positives for me as well. I think it was just and also the ability to be more active, play with my kids, go on 12-mile hikes through the Redwood National Park. It was a struggle, but damn it, I did it.
Yes, you know what? That 12 miles, that's a lot of miles for anybody. For anybody.
Yeah. So I was able to do a lot more things that I was not able to, there's no way I would have been able to do before. But also, as I'm approaching, I'm 40, going on 41, and realizing that if I don't take care of my body now, I won't be around for the long term.
That's right.
Because again, also studies show that people that have had severe childhood trauma, do you know that they have 20-year, their life expectancy goes down by 20 years.
That's startling.
Mm-hmm.
That's really shocking. I'm not surprised, but I guess maybe I am. It seems that's a pretty stark statistic.
So that's kind of where I'm at, where okay, so the average of my grandparents, they lived to be in their late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That would put me, if I, based on the shit that I've been through, that puts me in my late 60s. Do I only want to live for another 20, 30 years?
I certainly hope not. Well, good, because neither do I. I want you to go above and beyond all expectations.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's a matter of saying, I get to prioritize myself. And whether, so when it comes to any kind of stress or anything that disrupts my peace, bye.
Good.
My nervous system can no longer tolerate the level of bullshit that I tolerated for damn near 40 years.
Well, I love that for you, because it's never too late. It's never too late to be the person that you want to be. It just isn't. If somebody, as a closing thought, if somebody is listening right now and they are where you were, they have a lot of weight on them that they need to get off, want to get off for their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, and they feel stuck in their body, what would you say to them?
First of all, I would say that look at yourself in the mirror and just say, thank you for surviving this long. Thank you for getting me to this point. And realize that it's okay that you got to this point, you survived it, and you survived a hell of a lot. And then decide, do I want to live a long, happy life? And more, there's countless studies out there showing that if we do not get down to a more manageable weight, it really comes down to deciding small incremental steps. Just changing, rather than eating a bag of chips for a snack, eat an apple. Literally, that is the biggest thing that I struggled with. And I can't tell you how many diets I tried where I would just go gung-ho, all this, and cold turkey, no snacks, no sweets, nothing. It's just not sustainable.
Look, everything in moderation. I don't care what it is. Everything in moderation.
And I will say the GLP-1 helped naturally with the cravings. It just, I don't care what people say about it. And yes, it is astronomical in cost. But this medicine, and if I have to be on it for the rest of my life, so what? If it helps me maintain and, or lose weight or be happy with I am.
Can't put a price on that.
No, absolutely. Because I know for a fact, if I inch back up and get heavier again, I'm going to end up in a dark place again. And that's not, yes, I was in a dark place a month or two ago. That's not to say that, being skinny is going to fix all that. But it's a daily practice of choosing to want a better life for myself. And being at a healthy weight will make that one step closer to that goal.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think this is such a powerful conversation. And I love and appreciate you so much for being so vulnerable in everything that you share on this podcast, but being vulnerable with that too and sharing that part of your story. Because I think it's just powerful for people who are struggling with their weight right now to hear. It's powerful to hear where you've been and where you are right now. So thank you for that, because I think it matters. I think it matters for people to hear it from someone who's experienced it like that. And that's the whole point of us doing what we do. So
absolutely.
We'll end here, because this was a beautiful conversation, and we will be back. We'll be back next week with another fresh conversation. And in the meantime, everybody keep surviving. We will if you will.
Thanks so much for listening and for being part of the survivors community. No matter where you are in your story, you're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. Healing takes time, and it looks different for everyone. The fact that you're still here and still trying means you're already doing the hard work. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. That's how we keep these conversations going and remind each other that there's always hope.
And if you or someone you know is struggling, please remember, help is always out there. You can call or text 988 anytime to reach a trained crisis counselor like me. And for more mental health resources, tools, treatment options, and content to support your mental health, visit the HelpHUB.co. We're so grateful you're part of the Survivors family, and we'll be back next week with another honest conversation about life after the hardest things. Until then, take care of yourself and your people and keep surviving.